Great. See a lot of folks joining in. All right, so we'll go ahead and kick off our activities today with an invocation from Pastor Luis Colon from Heart and Soul Community Church, who many of you guys know from their great work that they do on behalf of the neighborhood here on North Clinton Avenue. I'll hand it over to you, Pastor.
Thank you so much, Angelica. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for our community, our barrio. We thank you for our city and our region and the families and the people that live there. You know what our families are experiencing, what our neighborhood is experiencing, God. We continue to pray for provision, for protection, for a sense of purpose in our community. We pray for those for whom our city and community is home, but we also pray for those who are recently arriving into our community, grasping to survive and trying to help their families. We pray that you would be with them in a special way today. I pray that you would help us to discuss the important things that we must. God, give us wisdom as we address these issues. Thank you for the leaders and the movers and shakers that are on this Zoom call today. I pray for wisdom and insight, God, from you. Help us so that we might be able to help our barrio, our people, our community, the public safety needs, God. The concerns are many, and we simply bring them all before you. Thank you for Angelica and all the others who are doing amazing work to try to move our community forward. And we pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor, for joining us today and doing our invocation. I would like to take a moment to just thank our wonderful sponsors. You know, it's always ESL, Federal Credit Union, Wegmans, the Conner Foundation, Canandaigua National Bank, XXI, Trillium, AARP, and Vision for just staying presente and ensuring that Ibero has the resources and needs to be able to have such an important and critical conversation. I would like to take this moment to just remind us of our mission and vision. So here at Ibero, we are a proud dual language multi-service agency that uplifts, empowers, and advocates for Latinos and the underserved to achieve equity and become fully valued community members. And our vision is to be recognized as a transformative force in achieving equity across New York State Latino community. And we really have been able to move that vision forward this year with some of the work that we're leading outside of Monroe County and some of our other Latino growing communities in upstate New York. So we're very proud of that. Next, I'll go over the agenda. We have a packed agenda with some great conversation and presentations that will occur. We'll start with our very own Miguel Melendez, who is our Chief Community Engagement Officer. He'll talk through, give some highlights about the work that we have led in the El Camino neighborhood. We have our wonderful keynote speaker who will be joining us and doing a great analysis and a great presentation around the challenges that are facing the neighborhood. We will then present some community awards, and then we'll have some closing remarks from Miguel. He'll shift his hat to City Council President and close it up for us here today. So without further ado, we'll start hearing from our strongest partners in the state delegation who have done some amazing work on behalf of Ibero this past year. And we'll start with our very own Assembly Damon Meeks from our 137 Assembly District.
Thank you so much, Angelica. I just want to say thank you all for joining us here today, and thank you all for the invite as well. One of the areas that we were called to discuss today is public safety priorities and our efforts. For me, I employ individuals to look at public safety, not just from the aspect of how it's given to us on television or how it's reported to us from different people who are in law enforcement, but I think that we must look at it from a Black and brown lens, look at it from the lens of our community, a grassroots level. And with that being said, the areas that I think we must focus on is health, as it relates to mental and physical health, education, housing, as well as gainful employment. When we look at a number of our communities, we talk about housing, but we must be intentional on advocating for quality housing as well as affordable housing. That's a major challenge. And it also brings about high stress levels. It also brings about uncertainty for so many in our community, in particular our children. I often borrow a quote from Frederick Douglass: "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." And I think that we must be intentional in doing that and working with our local delegation at the state level. One of the areas that we put a lot of energy in is early childhood intervention. Because when we look at the challenges across the board in our community, a number of those things stem from childhood traumas. So I think we must be intentional in investing money in early childhood intervention. When we look at zip codes in New York State, we have 5 of the poorest 25 zip codes in New York State. And that is the 14605, 14611, 14621. Those are actually in the top 3 of the 5 poor zip codes in New York State. So with that, looking at communities that historically have been disinvested in, and looking at how do we invest money, time, and resources in these communities. So that was one of the reasons that we actually brought the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, Asian Caucus to Rochester a couple of weeks ago with the help of Ibero, to show them these are the struggles in that small city upstate. And the way that we bring resources home is by building relationships with our colleagues in the state government. So now they have an actual view of what's going on in Rochester. So they came, we actually had a meeting with some of the primary caregivers as it relates to the spaces of the opioid crisis and mental health challenges. And they also assisted us with a cleanup, in the Clinton Avenue area. And they saw firsthand. And to hear from a colleague that was from Brooklyn say, we have our challenges in Brooklyn, but I've never seen anything like this in Brooklyn, for you all to collect these type of needles in the community in this short time period. So I think like recognizing those things and building the relationships to advocate for additional resources to rectify them. Also, food insecurity. That's something that's major in our community. We work together as a delegation. I took the lead on this to increase funding for the Double Up Food Bucks program. And the way that program operates is it matches every dollar for a dollar every day, up to $20 a day for families. And we were able to secure $2 million from the state, which was met with a $2 million matching fund from the federal government. So when families go to the farmers markets, Food Link trucks, and other, the public market and so on, they're able to make their SNAP benefits go that much further to assist them and their families. And also like really advocating for healthier foods in our communities, quality food markets in our communities. It makes a world of a difference. Just seeing the improvements with children having a quality meal versus junk food from the local corner store. And we can't talk public safety without education. Reason being, when we look at those who are often engaged in violent crimes in our community, you go back, you do your research, you'll find out a number of them aren't reading at a 3rd grade level. So based upon 3rd grade reading scores, you can know what type of challenges individuals may be faced with in the future. So I think we have to be intentional in recognizing, and that goes back to the early childhood intervention, but recognizing those challenges early on and connecting children and their families to needed resources. And another area that we're focusing on is career and technical education. We feel that that's needed when we look at the challenges before us as a school district. I often share a story of my visit to the BOCES program. in which you have the East Side BOCES and the West Side BOCES. So I represent the town of Gates, and a number of the students in Gates have access to the BOCES program. So one particular program, students are preparing slides in order for a doctor to be able to look at that slide and make a diagnosis of sorts. So these particular students already have a commitment from the University of Rochester and Rochester Regional Health that upon their graduation, they're hired. And they would make a minimum of $45,000 plus a year. And there's a further commitment from those institutions to pay for them to further their education. And with that being said, those type of programs aren't offered across the board in our city school district. And I think that it's absolutely needed to know that you can leave high school and not so much worry about going into debt that may affect you for decades to come. And you can actually hit the ground running in viable employment and a viable career track. So we've been intentional in recognizing these type of challenges when it comes to public safety. We also know that there is a need and there has been money invested in law enforcement, but we know that law enforcement often comes to respond to a crime of sorts, but we want to be intentional in preventing crime and also looking at the effects for generations to come. And I think that we must focus on quality housing, quality education, quality healthcare throughout our community. So I just want to say thank you all for having me, and look forward to continuing this needed work in our community. And Pastor, I just want to say thank you for the prayer early on. And it's not often you see pastors in the community that's under 30 doing great work. So we appreciate you.
Yes, we definitely do. Well, thank you so much
Thank you.
for all the work that you do on behalf of the community. So now I would like to introduce another partner in the work that we lead here in Ibero for the neighborhood, Assembly Member Sarah Clark from the 136th District of New York.
Hello, thank you so much for having me, and so proud to partner right along the border district-wise with Assemblyman Meeks in the northeast part of the city of Rochester. Again, I'm going to echo many of the same words that Damon just did. As a state delegation, our focus so much is really taking resources and investing in our neighborhoods, investing in our trusted partners who are actually doing the work on the street of the things that matter the most. I think what's happened historically, both with some chronic underfunding for our neighborhoods and our communities over the decades, but even the funding that did come down often came to bigger, larger organizations that were not the trusted community partners where we're needed most. They didn't have the language access, they didn't necessarily have the cultural competency, and they weren't someone that was moving any kind of needle, whether it was mental health, physical health, childcare, school, job training, all these different programs that we know that if we do in our neighborhoods with the people that live there, and elevating and resourcing those who do the hard work every day to try to make communities safer, to try to make our neighborhoods safer, and try to make families get what they need to be successful. We've done a lot of work around childcare, particularly in-home childcare. And when we were sort of working on some of these things, you know, these are often anchor institutions within our neighborhoods. They're the difference makers for people being able to get to jobs, but they're also economic engines for those who are providers. If we do it right, we need to ensure our providers have more resources, are making more money to the true cost of care, so that they can actually continue to. These are in-home centers. These are mostly in the Northeast that we visited when we had a statewide tour going. And if we do this right, that could be a game changer in terms of elevating those providers and their families out of poverty, but also providing more care for our children that is affordable to every family. What I will say more than anything, the sort of unifying factor from public safety to mental health to substance abuse to education outcomes to job training is housing. And we know we kind of didn't do enough this past legislative session, and we are going in full force to make sure that we're doing better this session. Housing that is accessible, housing that is affordable, housing that is livable and, isn't under code violations and things like that is the difference maker to stability, which decreases violence, increases education outcome, and actually helps those who are struggling with mental health and substance abuse. But it has to be affordable, not just in the moment. It has to be affordable in the future. That's the stability piece of it. We are often quickly finding someone housing, and within a few months, it becomes unaffordable for a variety of reasons. And if we're not figuring out a long-term plan, we're not solving anything. And we also know in the substance abuse and mental health space, we need supportive housing. We need to make sure people are getting the resources they need so they stay in housing and they don't leave. And lastly, there are so many people, particularly in the Northeast, in those neighborhoods that are older and want to stay in their homes. And we have to make sure we're finding ways to make sure that happens, both by making sure our neighborhoods are safe, but also that there's resources to paint a house, to weatherization for a house, to helping someone clean up or rake leaves or do whatever it is that they need to ensure they can stay there, they can age there, and continue to live in the community they want. I can't thank Ibero enough for all the work you do, for the fact that you're sitting at these tables around conversations and really sharing with us what is needed, what we can do better, and how we need to make this happen, including hosting the caucus when they came. I was so excited to be a special guest as well, as we tackle some of these issues that are not easy, but do need answers and need solutions. So we will continue these sites and we'll take it back to Albany. Everything you tell us is just gold, because that's what we know we need to do. So just thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Assembly Member Clark, for all the work that you do on behalf of the people. And now we'll have another great partner in the cause here for the work in the neighborhood, New York State Senator Jeremy Cooney for the 56th District.
Well, thank you, Angie. Thank you so much for your partnership and support, and always glad to be here for Ibero. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great day. I think we're certainly back in fall. So here we go. But I am just delighted to be here with all of you. And I want to zoom in on public safety, and I'll get to my points very quickly here, because you've heard some great things from Assemblymember Meeks and Assemblymember Clark. And what I think is special about our Rochester delegation is that we're working together and finding priorities that complement each other. And so you heard Assemblymember Meeks talk about double up food bucks and food access being an important part of addressing public safety. You heard Assemblymember Clark talk about housing and how important that is to the foundation of building our strong neighborhoods, especially in the barrio. So what am I going to add to that? First and foremost, we have to talk about, when we talk about public safety, talk about smart policy, but also those investments in root causes. So my focus has been on jobs, right? Empowerment of the family, giving people more resources to spend how they feel will best serve their family, whether they have children or not. And I believe economic opportunity is the way to do that. Before I do that, before I go into that, let me just say one thing. It is important that all of us at the state level, state policymakers, lawmakers, have close relationships with our friends in local law enforcement. They are boots on the ground. I know Chief Smith is on here from RPD. I want to thank RPD for doing their work. They are there day in and day out, and we're grateful for their service. But they need the tools to be able to do the work that they're doing. So some examples of some of the things we did at the state level earlier this year in the legislative session was we made some tweaks to the bail reform legislation. As Assemblymember Meeks said, he's absolutely right. Don't listen to everything you hear on TV. There's a lot that gets missed. It's too broad and too complex of a subject to get in a 30-second soundbite. But I do think we made some common sense changes to the bail reform laws to empower our local judges to be able to use their discretion when it comes to repeat offenders or violent felonies. So there's still more work to be done there, but that was something that we were able to get across the finish line in the legislative session this past year. Let me go back to economic empowerment and jobs. Jobs. We hear all the time about new employers coming to Rochester. So surrounding the North Clinton area, right, we've got in Gates, we've got the new distribution center for Amazon. Out east in Henrietta, we've got the new T-Mobile call center being opened up, right? These are good paying jobs, $55,000 and more. But if we're not having realistic conversations with partners like Ibero to make sure that we have transportation access that makes sense. Not 3 different buses that take, 2 hours to get to Henrietta. That's crazy. We need to make sure we have direct routes from the city of Rochester out to these large employment centers so people can get to work, earn a living wage, and get home and take care of their families, and hopefully get their kids off the bus if they have young ones. So we want to make sure that we are working with our community partners like Ibero to get that done. Every single time there's a community need, every single time, Ibero answers the call. So whether we're talking about caucus weekend this past couple of weeks, we had folks come up from New York City, whether we're talking about our asylum seekers who are trying to start a new and safe life in this country, in our community, Ibero has been there. So we're going to be there for Ibero. We're going to continue to make investments from the state level into people. So you'll hear later on some exciting news. We made sure that we were investing from seniors to our youth. The Centro de Oro program is amazing, like none other in the state. And Ibero has been doing that for years, oftentimes without support. We were able to give them a little support last year, but we want to make sure that we continue to make these investments in people, from our seniors to our young people. So again, my appreciation, my gratitude, my thanks to all of you who are continuing to support Ibero's work and know that they are the real deal when it comes to solving community safety here in the Rochester area. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us and all the great work that the state delegation just leads on behalf of Ibero. I would be lost without you all. You guys have definitely been great partners during some difficult times as we navigate the pandemic. So thank you. Now, I know Malik, our mayor of the city of Rochester, could not join us, so we will hear a recorded message from the Honorable Malik D. Evans. I don't think they can hear it.
Become one of Rochester's most outspoken voices and most effective champions for equal rights and equal opportunity for Rochester's residents. Ibero has fought to open the doors to Rochester's largest employers for the Latinx workers, and they continue to lead the charge to make sure that Spanish speakers and their children are treated fairly across all areas of society. And now Ibero is working hard to give Rochester's Hispanic community something they have long desired: a place to call their own, nuestro barrio, our neighborhood, which is taking shape as the El Camino neighborhood along North Clinton Avenue. This might be one of the most exciting developments in recent history. Dating back to before Rochester was incorporated as a city, the areas north of downtown and east of the Genesee River were always home to Rochester's newest and often its poorest arrivals. With each new wave of immigrants moving in and moving out as they assimilated into American society, unfortunately, the city's fathers had little to no incentive to invest in neighborhoods populated by one voiceless constituency after another. And so Northeast Rochester still bears the cost of that silence and neglect, and is home to 2 of the 5 poorest zip codes in all of New York State. But I'm glad to say that hopeful change is coming. Northeast Rochester is no longer silent, and it's no longer being neglected. With Ibero leading the way, with the relocation of its headquarters to the St. Michael's Church campus, the distinct character of the El Camino neighborhood is coming into view. A sense of ownership and pride is emerging from this neighborhood, and the foundation of long-term positive change is taking shape. In the past 2 decades alone, this part of the city has witnessed hundreds of millions of dollars in new investment, from the El Camino Trail to the International Plaza, from the El Camino Estates to Pueblo Nuevo. But the challenges remain deeply entrenched. And unfortunately, the El Camino neighborhood continues to experience a disproportionate share of crime and violence. So I'm glad the topic for today's virtual luncheon is a focus on public safety in El Camino. And the selection of Dr. Urshad Eltimer from the Center for Public Safety Initiatives is an excellent choice to inform your discussions on this topic. A coalition of city, state, and federal law enforcement agencies are working together to curb the violence with an unprecedented level of collaboration, and the excellent work of Dr. Eltimer's team drives much of that work. This information helps us to do more than make arrests. We use it to interrupt disputes that cause cycles of retaliation, and we use it to identify young people who are still in the very early stages of a violent lifestyle so we can offer them support to find better options. We are bringing a focused, surgical approach to our three-part crime reduction strategy of prevention, intervention, and suppression. That approach is built upon the information we learn from the people who live in the neighborhoods we serve. The owners of our neighborhoods, especially in the Northeast, refuse to be driven from their homes. The owners of the neighborhoods refuse to stay silent. They refuse to accept neglect. They demand change and they drive change. So thank you all once again for supporting the work of Ibero, and thank you for taking ownership of the El Camino neighborhood. Thank you for demanding and driving much needed, long-awaited change in su barrio, your neighborhood.
Thanks to Honorable Mayor Evans for sending us a recorded message. We also have a recorded message from our Monroe County Executive, Adam Bello. He could not be with us, but we'll listen to a few words from him.
Good afternoon. I'm Monroe County Executive Adam Bello. Welcome to the State of the Latinx Community, hosted by Ibero-American Action League. I want to thank Angie Perez Delgado and the entire team at Ibero for hosting today's luncheon and for all that they do for our community. Monroe County is proud to work alongside and support Ibero as they address the needs of our Latinx community and beyond. Our region is strengthened by its diversity, and locally, the Latinx population makes pivotal contributions to all areas of life. There is no further proof of this than the 3 award recipients being recognized today. I want to take the time to congratulate and thank Orlando Ortiz, Ida Perez, and Ron Maley for your service to our community. We are stronger, more engaged, and more inclusive community thanks to your efforts. As I reflect on my first term as county executive, I recognize the power of collaboration. In government, partnership is essential to advancing both public health and public safety. Since taking office, I've invested unprecedented funds in our sheriff's office, adding 50 new deputies to increase road patrols in areas that are seeing a spike in crime, and new positions at the district attorney and medical examiner to help solve gun crimes. I've also worked with Sheriff Baxter to create the Regional Investigative Operations Center to increase collaboration among law enforcement agencies, because we know crimes don't stop at municipal borders. We also started our new Juvenile Enhanced Diversion Stabilization Program, also known as the JEDS program, to address the rise in youth crime. JEDS expedites the process of connecting young people with programs, services, and support after an arrest. In just 4 months of the program, we've seen rates of recidivism fall by 50%. Our community continues to battle against the opioid epidemic, invested opioid settlement dollars in prevention, education, enforcement, treatment, and recovery. When I took office, I created an Office of Addiction Services and launched our Improving Addiction Coordination Team. When an overdose happens in Monroe County, Impact responds within 48 hours, offering compassion, support resources, and guidance to overdose survivors and their loved ones. And we're educating people about life-saving Narcan, and we've installed over 425 publicly accessible Narcan boxes throughout the community. We're working with community partners to save lives and fight opioid addiction. We're using our American Rescue Plan funding to invest in transformational projects that break down silos and bring services directly to people in need. Many of these investments support nonprofit projects that target longstanding community issues such as homelessness, food insecurity, access to healthcare, and ensuring youth have a safe space to socialize, connect with mentors, develop career skills, or continue their education. But government alone, we can't solve these problems. It takes all of us working together to make our neighborhoods safer and make our community a better place to live, work, and play. The Ibero team is an incredible asset that leads the way in offering services for our Spanish-speaking population. Your reach extends into many different areas: childcare, workforce development, healthcare, and education, and you serve as a key resource for the Latinx population and other underserved communities. You continue to evolve to meet the ever-changing needs of our community. That's one reason I'm proud Monroe County, through the County of Monroe Industrial Development Agency, is investing $1 million over the next 4 years to help Ibero expand job training programs at its Community Resource Center. These funds will help provide people training and assist them in developing the skills they need to find careers and good paying jobs. As public servants, we need community leaders at the table, letting us know what they're seeing in their neighborhoods and what services their families need. When we work together, there is nothing we can't accomplish. I look forward to working with many of our community leaders here today to find more innovative ways that we can serve our communities and ensure public health and public safety for all of our residents. Thank you very much.
We want to thank again our county executive for wonderful message to us today. And last but not least, another great partner in the work that we lead in the neighborhood and community will have a recorded message from Senator Osamra Brooks. Can't hear it.
For making this event possible and for all of you joining here today. My name is Samra Brook, and I have the honor of representing the 55th Senate District, which includes the east side of the city of Rochester and some of our surrounding suburbs. I also have the privilege of representing the city of Rochester with my colleague in the state Senate, Jeremy Cooney. As many of you already know, I serve as the chair of the Senate Committee on Mental Health, where I'm focused on making sure that every family, both in our community and across the state, have access to the care and support they need to thrive. And that's why I'm so grateful to Ibero for hosting this event each year and creating spaces to talk about the needs of our Latinx community. It's important that our collective well-being, that we honor and listen to those whose life experiences may be different from our own. And that information, those stories, must inform our work every single day. Because we all want the same thing: quality schools for our young people, safe neighborhoods, quality, affordable healthcare, economic opportunities, and a welcoming sense of community. That's why I'm so proud to fight alongside my colleagues in the Greater Rochester Majority Delegation to make sure that our community has a seat at the table. Because we know that the communities with the greatest investment, the communities with the most resources, are the safest, healthiest communities. This work isn't possible without organizations and community members making their voices heard and helping inform our legislation in Albany. That's why this event today is so important, and that's why I'm so grateful to Ibero for all that you do for our community every day. Thank you.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. We appreciate you being here with us today. My name is Miguel Melendez. I'm the Chief Community Engagement Officer here at Ibero-American Action League. With your support, we are creating more opportunities in the El Camino neighborhood. Move to the next slide. So last year, Ibero moved its administrative offices to the campus of St. Michael's Church. And it was because of you, the community, that we were able to do so. So I want to talk about the El Camino neighborhood. For us, the El Camino neighborhood is inclusive of everything east and west of the trail, El Camino Trail. And when we say El Camino, we're talking about a specific place. So everything from North Clinton Avenue over to the river, then Upper Falls to the city line to the north, which is on Longacre Road. Investments in the neighborhood include Conkey Corner Park, which is an asset that is right next to the trail. El Camino Estates, 50 units of affordable housing built near Conkey Avenue in a scattered site development done in 2 phases. The aforementioned El Camino Trail, now known as the Thomas R. Fry Trail at El Camino, a walking and biking trail in the heart of this community. And then the very popular staple, the International Plaza, which just wrapped its 3rd full season as a cultural destination and marketplace. Finally, most recently, Pueblo Nuevo Housing, which added 104 units of affordable housing in and around the El Camino neighborhood over the last few years, was a scattered site project also done in 2 phases. All of this work contributed to or came out of the El Camino Vision Plan. Ibero-American Development Corporation, and its partners have invested over $55 million into this neighborhood in the last 15 years. That work is not done. However, we know that that investment alone will not solve all of our challenges. We know there are still grave public safety concerns and challenges this community faces to this day. And we know this work must continue. At this time, I have the distinct pleasure of introducing you all to our keynote speaker, Dr. Irshad Altheimer, who serves as the director of the Center for Public Safety Initiatives at the Rochester Institute of Technology. Dr. Eltheimer is a process-oriented leader who I've had the pleasure of working with through Project Clean, and will share some of the challenges and opportunities around safety in our community. Welcome, Dr. Eltheimer.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And when Miguel reached out to me, asking me to give this talk, I couldn't say no. And the reason I couldn't say no was because, first of all, I believe in Ibero, and I've been fortunate to work closely with them and see the transformational work that they're doing in the El Camino community. And so it was a good opportunity for me to reflect on some of our work together, but hopefully to engage all of you in thinking about how we collectively can help uplift them and really their work to serve the community. I wanted to start out with a discussion of Ibero's core values. And I think it's important when you think about values, because values carry you, right, from to your place of purpose. Values help you to reach your goals. Values set the foundation for the journey that you're on. And so when we think about Ibero as the source of neighborhood transformation, upliftment, advocacy for the community, let's think about those values. So one is perseverance, equity, advocacy, compassion, and empowerment. And if you really think about that, if you get up on a Sunday and you walk to La Marqueta, you get out, talk to some of the people in the community, you can see those values in action. You can see those values in action, and it's really a remarkable thing. So let's talk about some of our aspirations for the El Camino community. And I want to just say, can you go back to the previous slide? I'm sorry. I want to just say that I don't own the rights to any of these photos. I stole these from all the El Camino neighborhood coalition's website. So you can go there and see all these amazing pictures yourself. So I just wanted to, acknowledge that. But, once community belongingness and togetherness, bringing people together to belong to that place that has such important historical significance for so many people. A culture and a vibrant culture, and thinking about the role that a vibrant culture can play in the revitalization of the community, right? And so, it's an opportunity when we think about all of the culture we have displayed there, to think about how we can leverage that culture to help bring about the transformation we desire in the neighborhood. Collective action and safety. So I was looking at this picture. It's really interesting because there's an interesting kind of coalition there. You have Councilman Patterson, you have Councilman Melendez. I think that's Beatrice LeBron, Jalil Muntaqim. You have Justin Morris. I think that's Ricardo Adams. You have this kind of very interesting coalition of people coming together collectively to deal with an issue. And I want to point out that not everyone can pull those people together. Right. And I think one of the things that's really remarkable about Ibero is that it's been able to constantly pull together diverse coalitions of stakeholders for the sake of uplifting the neighborhood. And that's not something we should take for granted. Youthful optimism. If we weren't doing a Zoom luncheon, I would do a quiz to see who knew where this was. This is Don Samuel Torres Park, a very significant place in the community, and a place where families gather and where youth gather. And we want the El Camino neighborhood to be a place where the youth form wonderful meetings, memories, where the youth meet, where the youth feel safe and where the youth see this as a place where not only can they live, but they can invest in and contribute to for generations. And then there's the village, right? We want the neighborhood to be a village that brings together all types of people for the different purposes to serve their needs, to whether it's doing business, whether it's cultural events, whether it's just hanging out in the park on a nice day. We want the community to see the neighborhood as the village where that can happen. And I think that in order to reach those goals, we need public safety, right? And public safety is a necessary component for those aspirations to be fulfilled. People have to feel safe if they're going to engage in the community the way we desire for them to engage in the El Camino neighborhood. You know, I don't want to get too deep in the literature on this discussion here, but if we just look at, for instance, some of the impact of crime on communities, it decreases trust between neighbors. Neighbors are also less likely to trust officials when there's high crime. It decreases collective efficacy, and that's a term that social scientists use to assess the willingness or ability of people in the community to address community problems. And it also impacts investment, right? And the investment part is very important because we hope that all of the work that's been done thus far really is a catalyst for further investment and opportunity. So when you think about hearing, you know, all the different politicians who came on talking about the investment in housing and so on and so forth, we hope that the work that's being done now lays that foundation for greater both public and private investment that will lead to the long-term quality of life that can improve the conditions in the community. So I want to apologize in advance because somehow in our transferring from the PowerPoint to whatever software is being used now, some of my labels got stripped out of this chart. But I just want to say a few. So I didn't want to go too data heavy today, but I wanted to bring a few things out here. So this chart on the left has homicides in beats 217, 247, and 277 and RPD. It's not exactly the El Camino neighborhood, but it overlays the neighborhood, right? And so, for instance, in 2000, you take all those beats together. 2000, there were 11 homicides. In 2020, there were 11 homicides. 2021, there were 13 homicides. In 2022, there were 17 homicides. And the ones next to that are the shootings, right? So there were 75 shootings in 2020, 83 shootings in 2021, and 61 in 2022. The next chart over just looks at shootings and homicides for North Clinton, from Upper Falls to North Clinton to Norton to North Clinton, and the streets that directly intersect with it, right? And so, for instance, in 2020, just along that stretch of Clinton and the roads that directly intersect, there were 10 homicides and 45 assault shootings. In 2021, there were 8 homicides and 34 assault shootings. And in 2022, there were 10 homicides and 36 shootings. And so I also had something that I didn't share here, and I had my students look at, I had some of my student researchers look at the concentration of gun violence in along the Clinton corridor, if you will. And within a 1 square mile radius of Clinton and Avenue D, there are around 1,100 people who have been shot between 2000 and 2018. So what this means is that for a lot of the young people who live in the community, even though we're seeing bright spots, there's unacceptable levels of exposure to violence. And this also leads to trauma and other challenges that impacts our ability to reach the goals in the community. So the question is, what can we do about it? And I'm happy to say that Ibero has been at the forefront of doing a lot of amazing things. And one of the things that we can think about here when we think about violence, surely there's kind of the long-term investments to deal with poverty and the underlying root causes. But there's also more immediate things that we can do at the community level that are very important. And so I just wanted to give a few examples of core characteristics of collaborative models that are successful. And then I want to talk about Project Clean as a case study that had these characteristics. The first one is it has to be community-led. This is very important. We need a community-led approach that from the beginning helps is dependent upon the community to not only identify the problems, but also give us feedback throughout the process. This is very important. Although it's community-led, it should be supported by key stakeholders, right? So when we say community-led, it doesn't mean just leave that community organization like Ibero alone, but it's no, stakeholders come to the table, supporting the leadership of the community groups and offering the resources they have as we develop whatever solution we have to as a community. Number 3 is connected to a research partner. This is very important because we need to collect data throughout the process. And oftentimes, in Rochester, we have so many researchers, so many universities, but we have not done a very good job of linking universities to community problems. And that's something that I think we need to really work on so we can leverage all the expertise we have in the community. It also should be data-driven, and we should be collecting data throughout the process. And the data should not only inform whether or not the project was successful, but also to help us think about whatever adjustments we have to make, right? And I put in here community-based participatory research because we're not just talking about feedback based on some data set that we pull up, but also direct feedback from the community throughout the course of the project. And the last thing I'll say before we go to the next slide is this needs to also not alienate the community. You can have something, right, that technically reduces crime, but you can have everybody, it may be problematic. A good example is stop and frisk, right? So even if you had a stop and frisk project in a particular area that reduced crime, if it turned the neighborhood into an open air prison, is it really worth it? And this is also important when we think about what we want for the El Camino neighborhood, because there may be interventions that may, for instance, help reduce crime, but they may undermine other efforts, right? So for instance, let's say tomorrow we said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to put a checkpoint, RPD checkpoint at Clinton and Upper Falls, and we're going to do a checkpoint at Clinton and Upper Falls, and we're gonna have one police officer there, and then we'll have another one at Clinton and Norton. And every car that comes through that corridor has to be stopped. We're not doing that. I'm just saying this is for the sake of discussion. If we did that, how many people will come to La Marqueta? Right. So even if you said, hey, this program actually worked, if the trade-off was that no one came to La Marqueta, would it be worth it? Right. So we have to think about interventions that focus on problem areas, most problematic actors, but also that do not alienate entire communities. So one example that I thought that I think is a wonderful example of a community-based project that we were happy to be involved with and that Ibero led was Project Clean. And I think I saw one of my colleagues, Janelle Duda-Banwar, who helped lead this project. So shout out to you, Janelle, for all your work you did. But Miguel was very central to that. And this project involved the partners developing a comprehensive approach to tackling the open-air heroin market in the El Camino neighborhood. And it started out from the beginning, Miguel was leading this as starting out community input. how can the community was concerned about the open air heroin market. Community members were saying this was a problem. So Ibero took the lead in crafting a community-based strategy to respond. And this strategy had three main pillars: safety, public health, and neighborhood well-being. And so the idea was to develop interventions within each of these pillars that will address the challenges associated with the open air drug market in the El Camino neighborhood. And one of the key parts of this was that the collaborative partners formed a project steering committee consisting of key stakeholders. And the stakeholders included government, a lot of the local nonprofits, RIT, but the stakeholders met monthly at the St. Michael's Church, and it was led by Miguel and his team. And from the beginning, there was a planning phase that identified the key interventions that the community wanted. Throughout the process, the research partner, RIT, we measured those key interventions, but also examined those interventions on key outcomes. And then every time there was a new intervention, there'll be reports back to the stakeholders, and the stakeholders would know where the intervention stood, what was the problem, what wasn't working, and how they can make necessary adjustments. And so here's an example of some of the interventions that came out of the project or that were part of the project. This is important because you may say, well, we planned La Marqueta a long time ago. That's okay. If you have a big project you're working on and you have other, you can tie it into a strategy with other interventions to impact the community. So here were some of the interventions that the steering committee decided will be part of the project. One was the redesign of the Samuel Torres Park. Another was RPD community engagement patrols, where RPD had officers focused on the El Camino neighborhood who will walk beats, observe the neighborhood, engage with people, and then monitor their behaviors. There was also the No Mosque campaign. And this is, if you're not familiar with that, community members will come out at set intervals and just send the message that they were tired of the open air drug market. Syringe cleanup activities were coordinated, and of course, the opening of La Marqueta. All of these interventions happened within the context of a broader strategy with the main pillars that I noted above. So what was the impact of Project Clean? Looking at the data, we saw a reduction of total overdoses in the target area. We saw increased law enforcement presence as perceived by residents. We saw reduced syringe litter and impact. We saw sustained collective activities and increased street outreach efforts. And I just want to make a quick point here. It's important to think about when you're doing these interventions in the community, trying to measure all the different impacts you're having in the community, and if you can actually assess if you're reaching the impacts that you want to have here. Now, I only have 20 minutes today, so I I skimmed over a lot of things. One of the things I want to say about Project Clean, it took a lot of coordination. And one thing that we don't do enough of is really put forward money and resources just to help organizations like Ibero coordinate all the different partners and stakeholders. I saw how hard Miguel worked. He's not going to tell you how hard he worked. I saw how hard he and his team worked on this one project, day in, night and day, working hard. But coordination is important. And projects like this, we make a certain number of assumptions. We assume that we have capable community organizations, and we do in El Camino neighborhood with Ibero, but we have to ensure that we provide them with the support they need so they can continue to be successful. The other thing is we make the assumption that stakeholders are willing to be led by community-based organizations like Ibero. And sometimes that's the case, and sometimes that's not the case. And so we need to make sure that we continue to challenge our larger organizations, our larger institutions, places like RIT with $1.6 billion endowments, to ensure that they are intentional about engaging and supporting our community-based organizations. And the last point I want to make is that we all have a stake in the El Camino neighborhood. We all have a stake in the vitality of Clinton Avenue. We all have so much to gain if the trajectory of that neighborhood continues to be vibrant, if the trajectory continues to be one of growth and development. But our challenge is to make sure that we leverage successful models of engagement that are effective and responsive, and we support organizations like Ibero that are doing the work to carry out these projects. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Eltimer. That was, I think, a powerful, brief description. There's so much more, right, that you can go into.
Yeah.
And if there's any link to any of the work that you're leading in community, please share it with us, share it in the chat. This is a very complex problem that we're trying to solve in our neighborhood, one that is not solved overnight. As we like to say here at Ibero, this is the long game. There's no short intervention and actual just long-term commitments, right, to uplifting a neighborhood. So I want to thank you for that. Before we go into the awards, I also want to take this opportunity to just thank our major sponsor, ESL, and not just for sponsoring today's luncheon, but really their commitment to the work that Ibero does in this neighborhood. Just recently, we were awarded a grant to be able to expand on the work that we're doing with entrepreneurs in the International Plaza, which is really critical to the bigger plan of revitalizing this neighborhood. So I want to personally thank them for their commitment to the work that we're doing. Project Clean was very meaningful work. It was also mirrored with Project Hope, who was funded by our other partners in the Greater Rochester Health Foundation. And it speaks to the work that we need to continue to do in this neighborhood. Okay, so now we will have the opportunity to recognize some well-known community members in our community to honor their outstanding achievement and contributions that they've made to hundreds and thousands of individuals in our community and in our community at large. And I get the honor to present the first award. And I'm just going to read a little description of the Alicia Torres Award. For those of us who have grown up in our community, we're all pretty familiar with the work that Alicia Torres led in our community, but I'm going to read you a little blurb of the description of the award. The Alicia Torres Award recognizes an individual who has demonstrated a lifelong commitment to the development and well-being of Latinos in Monroe County. Alicia Torres consistently worked with individuals and local organizations in their effort to support the growth of Latinos. She always worked behind the scenes and never sought attention for her contributions, but that everybody knew the powerful work that Alicia was leading in our community. Yeah, it was because of Alicia that many of the community initiatives that were launched today, and one being the Puerto Rican Festival of Rochester, are a reality. I have the great pleasure to recognize today Orlando Ortiz as the winner of the Alicia Torres Award. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Rock on Property Management and the president of the Puerto Rican Festival. What he's being recognized for today is a lot of the outstanding work that he does in our community. I think we all know him as the president of the Puerto Rican Festival, but he is so much more to that, to our community, and leads some amazing work. He was nominated by another pioneer in our community who I think is with us today, Bejong. So I just wanted to take a moment real quick and read a few words from Bejong's nomination. He was being nominated for the many years of bringing our culture, our music, and our traditions alive in the city of Rochester, bringing the values of our culture to that community, which often can go unrecognized. This is for him to continue to bring that energy and that culture and our traditions to our community, specifically some of the work that Orlando has done with that in the El Camino neighborhood. So we want to congratulate Orlando's, who is this year's winner of the Alicia Torres Award. I'm sure Orlando is with us. I don't know if we can bring him on as a panelist so he can share just some brief words.
I'm here, Angie. Can you hear me? Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. And as I mentioned to John, thank you for that nomination. I'm deeply honored to be here as a recipient of the Alicia Torres Award. The significance of this award goes far beyond, just the mere recognition. It's a true testament to the enduring spirit of community, generosity, and the relentless pursuit of bettering, the lives of Latinos here in Rochester. To me, receiving this award is humbling because it symbolizes the embodiment of Alicia Torres's values. I stand before you not as an individual, but as a representative of the community that believes in the power of unity, compassion, and dedication. I accept this in honor of, I accept this honor full of gratitude, knowing that I stand on shoulders of giants like Alicia Torres and others alike, who unselfishly contribute and have paved the way for others like us for the collective success. It's even more rewarding, as you mentioned, knowing that her contribution to the success of the Puerto Rican Festival, getting it to where it is today, obviously is an organization I've been dedicated to and for over 18 years and counting. And as we gather here today, let us remember that the Alicia Torres Award is not just an acknowledgement of the past, but continued commitment to the future. It is a reminder that the work is far from over and that we must continue to serve our community with the same passion, dedication, and humility that she's exemplified throughout her life. It's also our responsibility to bring others along to work on this as well. So I encourage others to identify community members to join the work and see where their passions meet with the community needs. And if we can marry those two together, it's even better. I appreciate and thank the community or the committee for this honor. And I share this recognition with other individuals who also dedicate their time, energy, and resources to carry for the betterment of the community. Thank you, and may we all remain committed to this cause of building community in the spirit of Alicia Torres. Thank you.
Congratulations, Orlando, once again. And now I'll turn it over to Miguel to announce our next award winner.
Yes. Thanks again, Orlando, for all that you do for our community. Retired Lieutenant Ron Malley, a great friend to our community, is being honored today for his commitment, compassion, and drive to serve others. The Unsung Hero Award is an appreciation of your exceptional dedication and leadership in your professional work and your community service. We are grateful for your commitment and contributions in the best interest of our community. Before his retirement, Ron Malley served at the Northeast Neighborhood Service Center as the lieutenant. Lieutenant Malley was very committed to public service and could be seen across his district at various meetings, events, and activities. Whether that was a block club meeting, addressing any public safety challenges on streets or in businesses, or working events at the International Plaza or Conkey Corner Park. Lieutenant Malley is someone who cares and was willing to advocate for the El Camino neighborhood. The answer never was a flat out no, but if there was a reason Lieutenant Malley couldn't do something for you, He would be open and transparent and tell you why. As part of Project Clean efforts of the Ibero-American Development Corporation, Lieutenant Malley worked tirelessly to target some of the biggest safety challenges in the El Camino neighborhood. While we still have some of those challenges to this day, his dedication to a better tomorrow helped us gain ground in places like Don Samuel Torres Park and at the International Plaza. Ron, thank you for your important service to our community. We know you loved your work and built lasting relationships here, and we hope that you're not a stranger in retirement. Thank you, Ron, and we welcome you to offer a few words with us.
Thank you, Miguel. Can everybody hear me okay? I
Yeah.
want to thank Miguel, Angie, and everyone else in the committee that had something to do with this nomination and award. I knew something was up when Miguel kind of reached out and wanted some information. Like, So kind of caught me off guard, but I want to thank everybody. And I also want to congratulate Orlando and Ida on your reward awards today. And I'll keep this very, very brief. I spent 30 plus years with the Rochester Police Department, and I was kind of counting it up today. I had about a dozen different assignments in the various capacities over the years, and had some exciting ones, and I had some challenging ones. And I got to tell you, the assignment in the Northeast Neighborhood Service Center was both. One of the most rewarding times in my career, because it really got back to the most important thing, community, right? We weren't chasing 911 calls. We were working on issues. And one thing that struck me as refreshing, but also kept me on my toes, was that Ibero came prepared, right? Out of a lot of our groups, a lot of times they just want the police to come in and fix their issue. With Ibero, it was always a collaborative approach. And I cherished that time. And once I got the trust and the thumbs up from Ida, I knew that we were going to have a lot of success in my 3+ years that I worked in that community. So I want to thank everybody that had a part of this, that continued to come to the table, because that was always one of my key terms. I said, might not always agree, might not always be able to get what you need, but I will always be at the table, because as we would get these challenges and we would kind of look at what we would do, I'd often get a call from Miguel or an email and saying, all right, how are we going to tackle this one? And we had to get creative, right? Because like anything, it's not one challenge, it's several. So I want to thank everybody. It's good to see folks. I'm trying not to be a stranger. But you got my information. I want to, just again, congratulate everybody that getting an award today, and it was good to see everybody. Thank you.
Congratulations, Lieutenant. I do think, having Orlando, having you, and then our next awardee, I think is really a reflection of the work that we have done under Project Clean and Project Hold to revitalize this neighborhood. We miss you. We still give Captain hell whenever we can. He's been an amazing partner. But it does exemplifies, I think, the work that community can do in partnership with the police department on behalf of the community. So you're truly missed. All right, the next awardee is no stranger, and in full disclosure, also my aunt. For those of you guys who do not know, Ida Perez is the youngest of all of the siblings from the Perez family. We were raised as sisters. So I get the great honor to present her today the President's Award. So I'll read a quick description, and then I'll talk a little bit about my dear aunt. So the President Award, the Ibero President Award, was something that was started by Hilda a few years back before I came on board. It has gone to an employee who has gone above and beyond their duties to contribute to the agency's mission and has served as key player in our success. We appreciate, it's our way of showing the appreciation for their commitment and the value of their passion and compassion that helps their leadership thrive. So for those of you guys who know my aunt, and you may know her in her many multiple hats, whether it's, if you guys didn't know, she started at Ibero in 2005 at the Early Childhood Center. But before then, she had a full-blown career at Action for a Better Community Head Start program. And before there was Grantham Street Club, she was actually a very active member of the Market View Heights Neighborhood Association and did a lot of boots in the ground at the time with Helder Hanif. That's how I met him back in my younger days. So the work that she's leading in this neighborhood is not new, was work, it's just who my aunt has been her entire life. But we're not here today to recognize her for all of those amazing community initiatives that she has led, but to recognize her for the important role that she has played at our Early Childhood Center. She has been the leader and has impacted thousands of children, thousands of parents who have received early childhood services here at Ibero. I'm sure, you know, she hates to run into the now full-grown children in their 20s that still have very fond memories and remember the impact, right, that the Early Childhood Center had in their life. She runs a center that is responsible for providing services to close to 130 children a year. It is a partnership between Ibero, Action for a Better Community Head Start, and also our partners at the Rochester City School District for universal pre-kindergarten programs. My aunt leads a team of over 25 staff that provide those services daily. And for those of you guys who may not know about our Early Childhood Center, it is one of the best, if not the best, in New York State and has been recognized multiple times as the best and highest quality early childhood center in New York State. She is a leader in the early childhood field, and we most recently started sharing her with REOC as an instructor and a professor of child development associates. I get the great pleasure of not only giving her this award, but I also wanted to share that outside of her great achievements in the community and the early childhood space, she is the #1 reason I get to stand here as president and CEO. So I'm gonna cut it at that before I get really teary and you guys get to see my ugly face. But she is my rock. She also is retiring on me, which I say to everyone, all our government officials, and even Ibero, watch out, because she is going to be a fierce advocate more and more than she has been in her time at Ibero. She always feels, you know, we hold her back a little bit. But I have the great honor as president and CEO to award my very own dear aunt the Ibero President's Award. So congratulations, Ida, and I will turn it over to you.
Well, of course, she won't show her ugly face crying, but she's going to show mine. Thank you all.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Andes, for those kind words. I'm really honored and very grateful for the opportunity that I have been given here at Ibero. You know, it's interesting because I was thinking back as to when I first started. I started as a coordinator for the Early Head Start program because I brought some of the Head Start experience with me, having worked with Action for a Better Community Head Start for 17 years prior to coming here. And I remember at the time we didn't have Head Start. And we had a UPK classroom, but there was only about 8 kids in that classroom. I was like, oh my God, we need a recruitment plan. Like, we need to get more kids. And I kept talking to everybody at Head Start that would listen. I would whisper in their ear, we need Head Start here. We have the kids, we have the staff, we just need the funding. And shortly after that, we were able to increase both of those programs, a Head Start program as well as a UPK program. And, you know, I'm very happy that I've been part of the expansion of of the center and being able to add 2 more classrooms and be able to serve more toddlers in our area, which is greatly needed. So I'm glad that I'm going to be able to finish that out, hire the staff, and have everything ready and running before I actually leave here. But you know, I'm very honored by this award. I'm very grateful. I do want to say something that I learned recently from Julio Vasquez in a couple of chat that he's given on the very first meeting that took place here at Ibero when Ibero first started with Colón Carrión. And in the very first meeting, he said, you have to give 120%, right? 100% of your job, and then 20% of your any advocacy that you want. And I think that's one of the beauties of working for Ibero, that you're able to do both, right? You don't have to give up one in order to do the other. And I think I'm a great example of how I've been able to balance both my work here at Ibero as a director, but also my community and advocacy work in my neighborhood, and working very closely with Miguel and his team in improving the quality of life of our neighborhoods. And that still continues to be, you know, what I want to concentrate a little more on, to be able to do a little more of that work. Because I did inherit my parents' house, so this is where I live. This is where my time will be spent until the end of my days. And so I do want to spend more time on that. And like Angie said, there is some other advocacy stuff that sometimes I feel I'm limited because I am a part of Ibero, and I would never do anything to hinder or damage Ibero or jeopardize Ibero in any way or form. So I think she's kind of right. Be careful, because here I come. And I hope that Miguel and other people that are working in the community would use me in that way and pick my brain and use still my skills and abilities that I have. But I'm very grateful, and I'm grateful to share this with Orlando, who, before he became the president, I was the president. And when I left, he became the president. So we'll always have that connection, him and I. I love the Puerto Rican Festival. I was part of it for over 17 years. And of course, my work with Lieutenant Malley. If anything hurt me ever, it was that. I remember in our meetings, he would give the statistics of how many officers were retiring. And I always would pray and say, I hope his name is not on that list. But eventually it did come through, and I'm happy for him. But I'm also happy of the work that we were able to do together in the community, and that hopefully we'll continue to do in other ways. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. So once again, congratulations to Orlando Ortiz, retired Lieutenant Miley, and my aunt Ida Perez for this recognition today. So everybody, a virtual clap. And she's not going too far, so she won't give us a time to miss her. And if you want me to include you in our family's throwing a retirement party on a date to be determined, put your email so I can grab it. I don't want nobody getting mad at me that I left you out. All right. So now I will turn it over to Miguel for some closing remarks.
Yes, thank you all. So in closing, I have some very exciting news to share with all of you today. One of our beloved programs, Centro de Oro, has received a significant grant from the Mother Cabrini Health Foundation. This grant will allow for Centro de Oro's program to join the Ibero administration and move to the campus of St. Michael's Church. In 2024, Centro de Oro will be located at the former St. Michael's Hall. This opportunity will also formalize a partnership between Ibero-American Action League and Rochester Hope, creating a shared director of outreach services between the agencies and further anchoring the campus of St. Michael's on North Clinton Avenue. In addition to that announcement, there's some upcoming events that I want to make everyone aware of. So we do have our Rock the Day telethon on November 28th. This will be on National Giving Tuesday, and it'll be for both Poder and Ibero. And then I'm personally inviting you all to consider joining the Corazón de Ibero Leadership Giving Society. A reception for that will be on December 7th for members of the Giving Society, which helps Ibero advance its mission in this community. Finally, once again, I would like to thank all of our sponsors, ESL Credit, Federal Credit Union, Wegmans, William and Sheila Konar Foundation, Canandaigua National Bank, WXXI, Trillium Health, AARP, and Visions Federal Credit Union. And with that, thank you all for being here. We really appreciate you joining us in this journey. The work is not over. The work is just beginning, and we hope that you will join us in this fight. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.